Well, Mr. Mirai from Sigh, how are you? Let's
Well, I'm doing
pretend the previous discussion we just had. We're starting again. So
okay.
how the hell are you, sir?
So can we start now?
Let's
Oh,
go.
okay. Well, yeah. So yeah, I'm doing fine. So how are you?
How am I? No one cares how I am. And we have a long, strange history, right?
Yeah, it's been 30 years now.
Yeah. Because when I started this podcast, I think on episode 1 or 2, I told the story of the gig with Sigh and Primordial in Dublin. And then all you guys staying in my parents' house, and then the next 5 days when we went to England. But that's kind of like, to me, that's one of the craziest and funniest memories of back then, just the absolute insanity of that gig in Dublin. But I've been telling that story now for 30 years. So now I want to hear your memories of your side of that absolutely
Oh
bizarre
yeah.
story.
Was it 94?
Yeah, yeah.
95 or
94, I think.
yeah. Yeah, of course that was the first show out of Japan for Psy.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course it that was still have a vivid memories of those crazy week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember meeting you for the first time. So on the first day, you had a full mustache and
Oh,
beard, but somehow on the next day you shove it off all of your
yeah.
mustache. So we were like, was it Alan we met the day before? So yeah, that's the first memory
Well, it's
about you for yeah.
but that particular gig though, because for people who haven't followed the podcast, is like we played in the back room of a shitty bar in Dublin, and we
Yes.
had to make the stage. And do you remember all the stage props and everything you had?
Oh yeah, and the guy named Bingo did some kind of grinder stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. And yeah, it was a shitty bar, but still, that was the first gig for us out of Japan. So well, it's a good memory for sure.
Well, how could that? I mean, the circumstances are so weird because we were both supposed to be. We're both on Cacophonous Records, I think. And didn't you just say to Neil, "Hey, we're going to be on holiday in England. Shouldn't we play some gigs?" And he sort of went, "Okay, here you go." But the first one, Balsa Goth were supposed to play. They kind of didn't ever. They just went home. We built the stage. There were lots of terrorists in the bar in the front, like ex-terrorists who wanted to close the gig down. Built the stage, and you guys just started off playing Venom songs, and the whole place was turned upside down. Everybody being thrown out, fighting, chaos. Someone had an iron glove on fire, and as you say, the grinder with all the stuff. But how could that be in your head to make sense of that as the first gig outside Japan? Must have been insane.
Yeah, it was, and the Balthagos was there at first, but they left
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah,
And they had a trouble with the promoter or
something like this. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, because the Balthagos was supposed to be a headliner, but they went home. So that was a good start, for all of us. And yeah, probably our guitarist did a fire burning or something
yeah.
before.
Glove
Yeah, yes.
in a tiny
Well,
bar.
yeah, yes. And we did a fire breathing too.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. So, and we played a lot of Venom covers instead of our original stuff. So the guy from Cacophonous was pretty much upset, and
yeah.
he was shouting from from the he was shouting like play more Psy songs, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was crazy. Yeah,
And
we were
after,
very very yeah.
and then afterwards, we went to my parents' house, who
Oh
were
yes.
who were on holiday, and they told me they were coming back the next day, but they arrived a day early. My mother came down and woke me up and went, "Hey, there's 4 Japanese people in my front room. What the fuck is going on?"
So what's he angry or
No, no,
mad at you?
no, because being an Irish mother, she was more annoyed she had no food to feed everyone. She was just like,
Oh.
"I haven't got any food." But also, there's 4 people asleep in the front room. And then you remember we went and got the boat across to England, and that was the start of like 6 days of I think, kind of craziness in the back of this tiny van. Remember?
Oh,
We were
yes.
staying with this Hypatian throne guys. I have no idea where you guys went. You went with Mike from the Devil's Church, so you must have some. You must have been some fucking weird places that whole week, right?
Yeah, we mainly stayed in the van, I guess, rather than going into the houses because the guy from Devil Church was snorting the coke and the everything was totally fucked up. So we preferred to stay away from that mess.
Yeah,
So we were staying in the van, but it was very cold in the
yeah,
van, of course, at
yeah.
midnight. But yeah.
Because you guys didn't even have instruments. I remember.
No, because we didn't want to, because we didn't have any work permit or anything, so we didn't bring the instrument. If we wanted to avoid the
Yeah,
trouble at the immigrants, so that's why we didn't bring the we didn't bring the instruments.
because I remember maybe in the fifth day was London. London was a good gig, and I just remember meeting you guys, and you guys all looked like so, like just tired, cold, just really, really worn out. Because I could only think of what the fuck was happening, hanging out with Mike for like 5 days, and now you say you were just sitting in a van for 5 days.
Yeah, look, probably London was the only decent gig. The others were horrible. The
Yeah,
turnout was horrible, and
Manchester was okay, but Manchester was all right. But yeah, London was.
Bradford was disaster.
Yeah,
The venue was kind of huge and like for 500 people capacity, and only 10 people showed up or something. Then it was
let's say 20, but about that,
20 was
I think
still.
Birmingham. Yeah, I think Birmingham was literally like the band Esoteric, and then three other people. That was like
Uh,
everybody who showed up. But that was the first time we went on tour, and it's funny looking back because you have no idea about. You say you're in the back of a van. It just doesn't come into your head like, oh, we should just go off and book a hostel. You don't think about that. You had no money, and or like we had no money to do anything, and like the idea that like you didn't know anything about amps or monitors or instruments, or you're just sort of like trying to figure it out all out. You've no clue about anything. And then there's this. Do you remember the Bingo and this other woman who just I think
oh yeah.
stayed up for like 6 days taking speed, just driving us around, stinking of sweat, wearing like he was wearing like a dress or something, and you know,
Yeah, but we hadn't had any experience, so
no,
we were not sure if that was strange or not. We thought this could be the standard tour, but
yeah,
obviously it was not.
no. And what? And then you went home, and then there's like, what? I mean, you must have been like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, that was crazy. And I took my girlfriend
Yeah,
with us, and we had a huge fight after the tour
yeah.
because of that. Because she had a horrible experience. So
Well, I mean, it's like it's when you're young, you can kind of let everything wash over you. But this
yeah,
experience was so crazy that I
yeah, that
think
was.
I think for almost everybody, anybody, it would have just really. They must have gone home and gone, what the fuck is going on? Because she wasn't really into metal, so she it seemed to maybe even
No.
more strange. And then you get there and there's like no food, no nothing. There's just lunatics just sitting around taking speed off cracked plates and fucking nowhere to sleep and nowhere to stay, and
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, there was no plan at all. So no hotel booked. We
no,
just had a van and driver, and that was it.
yeah, just. And but when you came back home, then I mean, how many years was it then until you managed to come back to Europe? That was it's a couple of years.
I don't remember when was the next one. So we went to the US in 1999, but
All right, okay.
Europe. But I joined Necrophagia, the
Oh,
death
of
metal
course,
band from the US,
of
and
course, yeah.
I
Holocaust
told.
of the Mort, yeah,
Yeah, then I went to Europe around 2001, 2, and 3. And then, we met again at Inferno.
yeah.
Was
Yeah,
it 2006?
could be, yeah, yeah,
Probably that was our return to Europe after that.
yeah.
Wow.
Must
Probably, yeah, yeah.
and you have to kind of. But now you're preparing to come sort of back finally and start to play again. It must be a kind of strange feeling. I saw like, oh, you're at Damnation. I was like, I should go to Damnation and see Sigh at Damnation. Then it's announced you're playing fucking here in a club,
Yeah,
which is about
I,
100 meters from the place you played in
oh,
'94.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Finally, after 30 years,
yeah.
yeah,
Only 30 years. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, because things are getting easier now. So finally, so we know how to tour. We know how to do it now without Devil Church.
yeah.
So
Well, but we should hope not. But the new album, I fucking really, really enjoyed it. I really
no,
liked
thank
the
you.
kind of movement back towards a bit of black metal, but keeping some of that craziness that's been the
Mm.
journey of the last few years. Because I would always check in with Sigh and go, I wonder where the fuck
Oh,
they are. And then it would be like, what's the album? Is it Luminary
it's a sick.
Lights or something? And I couldn't really understand what was going on. But now this new one seems to be like the perfect marriage of elements of that old style and the sort of progressive instincts of the last 10, 15 years. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you are right because the first intention about the album was to go back to maybe the first album. So
Yeah.
yeah, so this time I played guitar to compose the songs like I did in the early 90s. Because after that, I rather compose songs in my head or using computer or using piano. I didn't play guitar at all. But this
Really?
time I went back to my old style because of the pandemic things, because of lockdown, I had a lot of time. So I started playing guitar again.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so I just wanted to go back to Score and Defeat first album style a little bit, then added some, some Japanese elements. That was the intention. Yeah,
Could it be maybe it's a bit more like Hail Horror Hail, maybe a little bit or sometimes?
yeah, maybe that's true. So the very very 90s style.
Mm.
So yeah, that's true. And because now I'm 53, and my father died last year, so I
Okay.
faced a lot of the friends started dying, so I was pretty much in the dark mood. I was totally afraid of death, so I wanted to express my naked feeling
Yeah.
as a middle-aged man,
Yeah.
rather than I didn't want to pretend I'm still 20 or 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think
oh yeah.
I think it's very interesting because there's some similar things happened to Primordial, but also like there's songs in the last new album, the last album that you couldn't write at 20. You've got to be at least middle-aged and having the main body of your youth behind you. And the sense that, okay, we've got 10, 20, 25 years maybe left, but that part of your youth is over. And that's, there's a place where you can only write songs about that when you're in the middle of it. You can't write world weary, aged songs when you're 23. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, because I always wonder, so what is the point in making an extreme metal album when you are 50?
Mm.
Because, of course, thrash metal was born as like in the culture for young people
Yeah, yeah,
in the 80s.
for
But
sure.
now we're getting older. Now I'm 53, but we know about death much better than the young people. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of confident that we can write the dark album than
Well,
before. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think you're right. I think lots of bands find their way back around to the beginning. I agree with you though that like thrash and speed and also it's a young man's game, which is maybe why black metal allows you to have this element of I suppose the esoteric to add to it, which is our relationship to death and that kind of thing. So you can add. I mean, I found the new Primordial album to be more aggressive than the last few. I'm just somehow more angry, and people said, "Oh, you'll calm down and you'll whatever." Actually, the opposite has kind of happened. Maybe it's because of, as you say, a broader understanding of where society is. But it seems to be the sort of perfect time for Psy to make this album.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I've been thinking about death from the very beginning. But before death was just a fantasy, like a horror movies. But
Yeah,
now it is not. It's reality.
yeah,
It's a harsh reality. So it's probably the you know we still deal with death, but as a totally different thing now.
Yeah.
So,
What about this kind of the new kind of stage presence and stage things going on that you're doing? Some of the videos and images I saw look very cool. Like it's sort of, as you say, got that element of the sort of what would you call it, Japanese esotericism or something like this, or theater style mixed with the traditional black metal element.
yeah, that's what we are. Now we have a new guitarist, so
Oh yeah.
he's a designer, so he can do a lot of visual stuff.
Mm.
So now it's great to have a talented musician who also has a who can handle the visual things. So obviously the stage props and those things are
Okay.
much better now. Yeah.
So what does it feels? Does it feel like having been on quite a long, interesting, strange journey to find your way back to maybe not quite the island you left from, but the island beside the island you left from? You kind of find your way back to the beginning at the end, maybe.
Well, because usually the music you listen to when you were a teenager, it never leave you.
Yeah, yeah.
So of course, I used to listen to a lot of heavy metal, thrash metal, extreme metal when I was teenager. Then I started exploring other stuff like jazz, classical, and techno or everything. But you always come back to the old stuff, like you can't leave Celtic Frost, you can't leave Venom, Sodom, Hellhammer, or whatever. So probably you're right. You probably most of the people go back to your roots after a long journey. Yeah.
And what do you think is the particular, because I remember back in the whatever Requiem for Fools, the sort of early Sigh stuff, there was an element of the exotic to it about it to us because it was from Japan. At the same time, like to me, when I first heard it, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds Japanese, but of course, this also sounds like Venom. Like what I love was mixed with this element of whatever is the cultural, distillation process through which this is coming from. But if you go back to the beginning, what was that Japanese feeling that interpreted that early black metal? Like same as the Greek bands or the Colombian bands or whatever. What was that particular thing that you think stands out now, looking back, that made sides sound that singular back in those days?
Well, that is a very tough question because I never, for the new album, of course, I took in a lot of Japanese elements, musical elements, but before I never tried to sound Japanese at all. But Requiem for Fools, that was Slayer to me. So the song like the Nail was written right after I saw Slayer for the first time. Slayer came to Japan in 1990 for the first time. So that was a great gig. So I wrote the Nail right after that, and I never thought about making it sound Japanese at all. But still, I'm sure it sounds exotic. It sounds Japanese to
us,
the European people. So that was very spontaneous, probably.
What is it that makes, like to us it did, I mean, maybe it's the power of suggestion, but certainly when we first heard that, what was it then, Victory for Dakini, or what was the name of the next demo?
Victory, the Victory of Dakini is the first track of the first album, but maybe I sent you the advance tape or something.
Yeah, and then we were thinking to ourselves, well, no, this sounds fucking amazing, but it felt sort of Eastern to us. What I'm trying to wonder is, it must, how do you describe that? It must be difficult to get a little handle on, because people say to me, "Oh, Primordial sounds Irish," and I go, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Okay, you can talk about the rolling rhythms, whatever." They go, "No, it sounds like how Ireland was when I visited. Earthen and sodden and rainy and windswept and the landscapes." And I go, "Okay, well, how have we internalized that to interpret for you to sound like that?" I wonder what is the power of suggestion, and what is the genuine sort of cultural, geographical leanings that lean into the music that make it that nuanced. Because I believe that that's a thing. I believe Running Christ, Passage to Arcturo, it somehow feels Greek to me, or warm. It feels southern.
Yeah. But I think the language is one of the biggest thing, because Japanese language is totally different from English, because English is very rhythmic, but Japanese is not rhythmic at all. So we don't have any accent. We use intonation. rather than
Right.
using the accent. So the Japanese sounds very probably melodic to the Western people, I
Mm.
guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a different sense about rhythm and melody than English speaking people, because
Interesting.
we probably that is the biggest thing, because we think in Japanese. I always think the language is the biggest element to I don't know how do you say, probably if my songs sound Japanese, probably it should be because of the Japanese rhythm.
And what
Of
about
course, mm,
but what about the sort of Japanese religion, or the what's that, Shinto? Is it there's some sort of, do you think that there's some sort of esoteric influence from that or whatever?
I don't know. Of course, we used a lot of Japanese, occultism things like
Mm.
religious stuff in the lyrics of the first album, first maybe 3 or 4 albums. So it's
Mm.
in that sense, of course, it had a very Japanese atmosphere. But I don't know if it affected musically or
Mm.
not. Mm.
I mean, especially like the artwork for the second album. I mean,
Yeah, of course,
uh,
we used a lot of Japanese images. But I always try to, I always try to avoid sounding Japanese
mm,
intentionally.
mm.
But still, I'm sure those albums sounded very exotic in Japanese to the Western people. But I
Yeah, yeah.
didn't want to. Yeah.
And what about like, so I mean, inevitably people will want to ask me about the whole DSP, Euronymous Mayhem thing. How, I mean, there's a lot of bands were on the list that were supposed to be on DSP. They're
Yes.
supposed to be signed by Euronymous. But you guys, it's like you just got through the gate, where lots of other bands never managed to get there. How, like, did you just send off the master tapes and all of a sudden 9 months later there's a record sitting there? Or can you remember back at the time how it all worked? Because I think it was like Merciless, The Awakening, and maybe a few other things. No, I think that may be one or two other things, and then Sigh, Scorn Defeat comes out, and I seem to remember talking to you about it at the time, and you were just like, "Well, we sent the stuff off, and you don't know what's going on." You
Yeah, of course, Euronymous was very, very unorganized, and probably he didn't have money at all,
know? Yeah,
because sometimes even the phone didn't work because he didn't pay the bill.
yeah.
And we recorded the album Scorn Defeat in early 1993. I think we finished recording in March of 1993 and sent the master to Euronymous. But first he said, you should listen to the album every day, at least for a month.
Mm.
And even after a month, if you still like it, it's okay. But
Okay.
but now I understand it. When I was young, I wanted to release the album as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah, of
But
course.
Euronymous was right, because I was listening to the album every day. But I found out some parts to be fixed. So we went into the studio and did some additional recording, probably in April or May, and so sent a new master to Euronymous. But nothing happened for a
Okay.
while.
Yeah.
Then I called up Euronymous on August 7th. Then he said he had a fight with somebody in bar or somewhere, and he stabbed him, so he might have to go to jail. So
Okay.
he sounded kind of depressed, and
Uh,
that was of course bad news to me, because if he goes to prison, Scorn Defeat might not be released, or it can be delayed
Yeah.
very badly. But then I got a letter from Samoth of Emperor on
Yeah.
August 20th saying Euronymous was murdered. So yeah, that was very shocking. But Euronymous was murdered on August 10th, but back then we didn't have the internet.
Sure.
So
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, 10 days later, I got a letter from Samoth. Then I found out the tragedy.
Yeah.
Then, DSP was taken over by
Yeah. Yeah.
Voices Wonder
Okay.
was a distributor of DSP or something.
I
And
think
so,
something like this. Yeah.
yeah, so they released the album in, I don't remember, probably August, 2 months later or something. But maybe if Euronymous hadn't been murdered, the album might have not been released that early. This could take much longer
Yeah,
because he didn't have any money to press the album.
I suppose so.
The-
Yeah, Voices of
mm,
Wonder wouldn't have taken over and just started to put things out. Yeah,
yeah.
he could have taken another 6 months maybe or something.
Mm.
Yeah, because strange times. Because people will be annoyed at me if I don't ask about all this stuff. Even though I imagine we had this exact conversation, probably sitting in my fucking parents' house in like 1994 or something, you know. But yeah,
Yeah,
because these things are so they're so alien and I guess exotic or so strange to people who are not part of the scene at the time, you know. And you were
yeah, sure.
more in the middle of it, you know.
Yeah, because after Requiem for Fool it came out, I sent it to all the labels
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew back then. But Euronymous was the only one who showed interest in us. So we didn't have any choice. So I kind of knew that DSP was very unorganized, but there was no other way. So I just had to wait for
yeah.
him to come back to me because we didn't have the email. So if you sent it a letter, you had to wait for a month or even more.
Mhm.
So
And now, when you're going to start playing again and play some festivals, it's interesting now to like meet those people that you used to be
oh yeah,
infamous pen pals with 30 odd years ago. You know, whether you bump into, people from X or Y band or whatever. It's always kind of, oh hey, how's it going? Kind of like that nod and a wink, and then one beer, and you go, oh, remember that this letter or that thing happened in 92, 3, 4, or 91 or something. You know, like I'm after this, I'm going to have to do some little thing for Sakis from Rotting Christ, and I think the first time I remember writing to him was like September '91 or something, for Passage to Arctur or something. But as you say, these are all the things that lead us round to this view of where we were now at middle age. It seems to
yeah,
be a good position to look back on because I don't know how a band could have analog experiences now in a digital age. You know what it's like, that thing of getting that letter, that an envelope, and
yeah,
opening it and go, fucking hell, it's Requiem for Fools on cassette. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's an experience that's almost impossible to replicate. That makes that time so special.
Yeah, because we had a now thanks to the internet, things are very very convenient. But I think the fantasy was lost.
Yeah,
So because in the 80s and 90s, because you heard the rumor about some bands like Cryptic Slaughter, Death from the US, but
mm,
you didn't have the way to
yeah,
actually listen to the music. So you had a fantasy about those the some underground bands you never heard.
yeah,
But now you can access everything on YouTube. It's
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's a great thing. But the same thing about pro wrestling or that we had a lot of fantasies in the 80s.
yeah. I mean,
But
like, did
now
you want to know what would it have made Blood for Death better if you knew that Corthon worked in a post office and did this and walked his dog here? And like, no, you didn't. You didn't want to know those things. It's like somebody says to me, my friend goes, "Oh, who the hell are Death Spell Omega?" I go, "Well, you know what? I could find out, but it doesn't matter. I still like to have some element of mystery, which it
yeah,
makes it doesn't sound correct because I do a podcast, and I sometimes I think to myself, I'm talking about stuff every week, and I go, am I revealing too much of myself?
mhm,
But does it ruin some element of mystery about Primordial, or I don't know? Then you think to yourself, well, look, it's 32, 33 years or whatever it is, and whatever is about you, people are going to find this out anyway. Maybe you've done your
yeah,
years of being mysterious. I don't know.
yeah. Now the situation is totally different
Mm.
from the 80s. I don't know. Maybe I don't know which one is better. You can listen to anything on YouTube. It's a good thing, but I still miss the old days
Yeah, I
as
mean,
an old man. Eh?
I like the idea that back then it was virgin territory, but there was a sort of freedom to be extreme or free. You
Mm,
weren't worried, of course, as a kid about what you're saying, or it was taken for granted that that's what black metal was. And I remember once
yeah.
a lecture about black metal, and the first thing I said was, that's a couple of years ago now. I said, you can't intellectualize a punch in the face. And the point is, you want me to make a lecture about something that was totally instinctual. And the extremity sometimes is just symbolic. You can't reinterpret symbolism from 1992, 93 that was made by angry young dudes just trying to do that. It's maybe a fool's errand to try and make it too intellectual, you know?
Yeah, now, yeah, it's true. And back then, the heavy metal was evolving in real time. So,
Yeah,
like, you can feel the BPM is getting higher and higher every month or every week.
yeah.
So that was very exciting. But now everything has been tried and done. It's very difficult to feel that kind of excitement anymore. So I
Yeah, I
miss
mean,
that. So, yeah.
yeah, and albums that changed and defined your life. That's because I
Oh,
suppose
yes.
you're young also, but I still don't. I had to do a thing which is top 20 album or top 15 death metal albums before 2000 and after 2000. And I was like, I don't think a single record after 2000 gets into the first list, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And
Sure.
is that just because I'm older or is that actually true? And I kind of go, probably is true. Because death metal is old now. It's a kind of old form of music. At one stage it was, you remember, you got Altars of Madness in the post, you're like, fucking hell,
Yeah.
and the next month, slowly We Rock came out, and then Severed Survival came out. It just changed the fucking world.
Oh, yes. And back then, we didn't have a lot of money. So
Mm.
if you buy an album, you had to keep listening to it until you get more money to get another album. But now, if you try on YouTube, if you don't like it, you can skip it.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. Some albums grow on you. So that probably the way people listen to albums changed a lot too.
Yeah. And so now, I was going to say, coming kind of a bit back to full circle to where the band was kind of in the beginning, does it feel like a good place, like a comfortable place for Sigh to be? Because I know friends of mine have sent me the poster for the Dublin gig and they're like, fucking hell, Sigh's
Mhm.
playing in Dublin again. And they're people who were there 30 years ago and they're like fucking excited. And then the conversation is like, hey, have you heard the new album? And everybody's like, fucking hell. It sort of feels like people are discussing the band in these terms again. It's kind of, I don't know, feels like a good place to be or what.
Yeah. It's. Yeah, I think I think it's a good thing. People still interested in our new stuff. As you said, I know a lot of people want us to play Scorn Defeat in its entirety or something, but it's okay. But it's great that you know because I myself am old middle-aged man, so if I went to Slayer's concert, I want them to play only the songs from the first three albums. So I understand, the people's thoughts about that kind of things. But it's great,
So
still
are you
the
going to
new
play
album.
your own songs or are you just going to play Venom songs? Which are you going to do this?
Well, actually, we still play some Venom songs too. We still remember the old days. So
Yeah, because somewhere or other there's like videos of me singing some of those songs with you on that
oh,
tour. Because it was
you
just
did
like, there's like nothing else. There's nobody here, so we might as well just do whatever we're going to do, you know?
yeah, you did black metal
Yeah, and Witch
vocals, I
Hour, I
guess.
think. We did
You
Witch
did too.
Hour with like Melissa from Adorior and a bunch of other people in London. I seem to remember it was kind of chaotic, like 8 people on the stage trying to sing Witching Hour and stuff, you know? So
Maybe we have to do it again next month.
don't say that because people in Dublin are probably like, oh, fucking hell, it's going to be the same shit. But yeah, it's funny because it's like the venue is literally 100 meters from the other venue. Don't worry, it's a
Oh,
proper venue,
that's great.
but like 100 meters. So, you're probably going to get some little deja vu memories. But Dublin has changed so much, though. It's like,
Oh, really?
and that bit of money and stuff. But like, you're going to get probably some little deja vu moments walking around, you know?
Because, yeah, 30 years. So things should be different now.
Yeah, well, you don't have to stay in my parents' front room on the floor, so that's a good.
So will you be around
Yeah, of course I'll be
in Dublin?
around. Yeah, of
Oh,
course I'll be around. Yeah,
okay.
and I'll drag the other guys in as well. But yeah, man, no,
Cool.
it's we're coming up to the end of this now, but it's just an interesting. I often think with metal fans, they sometimes kind of form ownership of their bands, and I think that I love it, but I kind of don't like it in another respect. And I always looked at what Sigh was doing, this kind of strange journey you were on, and I was like, what the fuck are they doing? would always check in. And then I always thought, at some stage they're going to come back to some element of where they were. We all seem to do that somehow anyway.
Yeah.
Retrace our steps a little bit. But it's no, it's a great record, this new one, man. Really, really great record.
Thank you.
But
yeah, it means a lot. Yeah, your word means a lot.
But no, it's I mean, it's just an interesting, crazy journey to have been on. I think much more than other bands.
Yeah, but I can't believe it's been 30 years now. It's just like well, because we were like 20 when we met.
Yeah.
But now it's been 30 years after that. It's very hard to believe that was 10 years longer than our first life.
Yeah, it's weird because people ask me what it was like, things like that, and you go, well, it feels like 5 years ago, but it also feels like a complete other lifetime. It's weird.
Yeah,
it's both things at once,
true.
Yeah. Well, on that note, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure. This would be a good moment for me to press the button.